There's a version of yourself you're trying to become. You know the one. Calmer, more present, less reactive. The version that doesn't get triggered. That stays grounded. That responds instead of reacting. And you're working on it. You catch yourself now. When you say something and immediately think, I shouldn't have said that. When you get irritated and try to soften it. When you're anxious and try to breathe through it. In conversations, part of you is talking while another part is monitoring. Am I listening enough? Am I being present? Before sleep, you review the day. What went wrong? What you could have done better? The mind creates an entire system. A self that's flawed. A self that's ideal. And the constant work of closing the gap between them. It's exhausting. But the exhaustion doesn't stop the project. It just becomes another flaw to fix. I'm too hard on myself. The ideal version would be more accepting. So now you're trying to become someone who tries less hard to become someone. Every attempt to close the gap just creates more distance, more work, more of a self that's endlessly trying to improve itself. In the early 20th century, in the south of India, there was a man who spent most of his time in silence, Ramana Maharshi. People would come with questions, searching for answers, and often he wouldn't say much at all. But when he did speak, it wasn't to teach a method or offer a path forward. It was to point, to ask a question that had no answer the mind could hold on to. He would ask, who is it that wants to improve? Who? Which self? The flawed one or the ideal one? The one being observed or the one doing the observing? And then he'd say something that sounds simple, almost too simple. The thought, I, is the source of all other thoughts. The I that you're trying to fix. The I that's not present enough, not calm enough, not aware enough. The I that's reviewing your day, monitoring your reactions, checking if you're progressing. Where does it actually come from? Ramana would point to its source. The ego only arises by grasping. Inquire into where the mind arises, and it will cease to exist. Today, we simply allow this teaching to meet the exhaustion of trying to become. So you start to look, not at the thoughts, but at who's looking, who's the one monitoring, who's checking if you're improving. And here's where something strange reveals itself. The one trying to improve is made of the same material as the one being improved. They're not two separate selves. They're both movements of the same thought. The thought, I, creating a gap and then trying to close it. You're anxious, and another thought arises, I shouldn't be anxious. But who's the one that shouldn't be? The anxious I or the calmer I you're trying to become? Both thoughts. One saying, I am this, and another saying, I should be that. And the gap between them? Also a thought. The entire project is the ego-building work for itself. Ramana said it directly. The ego only arises by grasping. He used a simple image. Letters written on paper. You're focused entirely on the words anxious, distracted, reactive. You don't like them, so you try to erase them and write better ones. Calm, present, aware. The project takes years, but you've been so absorbed in changing the letters that you forgot about the paper underneath. You pay no attention to the paper, which is the real substrate. The enlightened See the paper as the substrate, whether letters appear on it or not. The paper doesn't need better words. The self you're trying to improve is just letters, temporary descriptions, and what you actually are. The paper, not needing improvement, not needing anything. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. If the self being improved doesn't exist, and the self doing the improving doesn't exist, then what was all that work for? The mind wants a better method, a more refined approach. Okay, so I'll improve my relationship with the self. But who's improving the relationship? Same movement. The thought, I finding new projects. And Ramana pointed to something most teachings won't say directly. All those thoughts you've been trying to fix. The anxiety, the distraction, the reactivity. All kinds of thoughts arise in meditation. This is how it is. Everything that was hidden in you is brought to the surface. They're not the problem. They arise. They pass. It's the one trying to fix them that creates the conflict. Because every time you try to improve, you're reinforcing the illusion that there's a separate self in here that can be improved. More letters on the paper. Realization is nothing to be acquired. It is always there, but obstructed by a screen of thoughts. Not bad thoughts, just thoughts. The entire screen. The flawed self, the ideal self, the one trying to close the gap. All of it. And the moment you ask, who is trying, you stop feeding the project that was keeping it in place. The project doesn't stop just because you see it. Tomorrow, maybe even in an hour, the thought will come again. I need to be more patient. I should be calmer. Why am I still reacting this way? And for a moment, you might catch it. See that it's just another letter trying to rewrite itself. But then the mind will do what it does. It'll find a new angle. Okay, so I won't try to improve. I'll just accept. And who's the one accepting? It keeps going. This is how it works. The thought, I, is resourceful. But you might notice something when the question arises. Not as a technique, just when the project appears, you see, who is this for? Where does this voice come from? Ramana didn't offer a substitute. He didn't say, do this instead. He just pointed and kept pointing to the same question. Who? Who is it that wants to know? Who is trying? The self you're trying to improve doesn't exist. It never did. It's a thought that's been running so long, it feels solid, real. But when you look directly at who's trying to improve, when you ask where that sense of I actually comes from, there's nothing there, nothing to hold on to. Maybe you've already noticed this in small moments, when you're fully absorbed in something, a conversation, a task, a moment that wasn't being monitored. No one checking, no reviewing, nothing trying to become, just what was happening. And then the thought, I came back, and with it, the project. You don't have to stop trying. Just notice what's already happening. The mechanism, the loop. Once you see it, the project starts to lose its grip. Just from seeing it's writing letters that were never needed. If you find yourself returning to this question, there are other recordings here where Ramana points to the same recognition from different angles. Sometimes one pointer lands when another didn't. Or maybe it doesn't shift at all. Maybe you just keep asking, who is trying? And that's enough. Where do you notice this project most? The voice that says, "You're not enough yet," in meditation, in how you interact with others, in the constant internal evaluation. I'm curious what you've noticed. The self you're trying to improve was never real, and the one trying to improve it is the same thought looking for somewhere to land. There's nowhere for it to land. There never was.